Until you get a manager or someone to represent you, you're going to need to pitch yourself as an artist. That is an art form into itself. And I see, over the years, I've seen a lot of interesting pitches. I recently got one via Facebook 2 weeks ago that said, "I'm looking for management." Okay, that's great. So what you want to do is you want to condense what you have to say into bullet points. What you are, in other words, what you sound like. So I like to say you're Led Zeppelin meets Britney Spears meets whatever, just combine and mix so people get an idea of what you sound like. To the degree they'll go, "Oh, that sounds interesting, I'll go listen." But don't send it to people who that's not going to resonate with. There are directories available that have what management companies have signed and what different people within the management companies, what bands they work with if they're huge. So do your homework. Got to do your homework. And then if it's appropriate to your music, you send them a letter, say it sounds like this, this, and this. Bullet point who you are. If you have any press, put a couple of quotes in there. If you have any momentum going, just bullet point it as short as possible. And also tell them why you're writing them. Very important, I feel. Actually, independent labels are in the process of morphing into a new animal, it would seem. Their terms that I've seen from independent labels have been super fair to the artist. And it's more of a partnership, which is fantastic. And the major labels are as they've always been, which is a conveyor belt for distribution. So as long as you approach your decision about what label you're going to do based on reality, you'll hopefully make the right decision. Now, major labels do not necessarily have a gigantic department to dedicate to what is correct for each artist. They have a conveyor belt that gets the music out, and it's almost like they're throwing it against the wall, and what sticks, sticks. Like with Garbage, I was told producer records don't sell. We're just going to put the album out and see what happens, but we don't have much hope for it. So I knew that I had to force a situation to happen so they had something to respond to. So I upset people in that process, but at the same time, we all became successful. Now, Garbage was the only band to break on that label, and the label was very upset with me the whole time. But if I hadn't done the things I'd done, who knows if they would have broken. I also brought in things like sane touring, getting a certain number of days off per week. Because if you want to tour for a long time, you need to embrace your humanity rather than stress out for a year and work 6 out of 7 days a week. Just, you can't do it. This upset people as well. So with a major label, you're going to need to fight for your beliefs, for your integrity, for what is right for the artist. But first of all, you're going to need to cut the right deal. You need a good attorney and a good manager. They're doing 360 deals now where they take money from all aspects of your career. Touring, merchandising, everything. This is seen as fair because they're investing in you. The advances are larger. You're going to get money up front. But you need to recognize all that money needs to be paid back. In addition to a lot of costs need to be paid back before you see a royalty. This is something else people don't understand. Artists don't see money for quite some time sometimes because they give you money to live on for a while, and sometimes to make the record needs to come out of that. You have to pay for your videos. You have to pay for your marketing. Even if they have an in-house department sometimes, the artist needs to contribute to that payment, and it's a padded cost, meaning it may cost them a nickel, but the artist has to recoup it $1. So that's the issue with majors. On the positive side, they have a cartel with all the television stations and radio, and they have relationships with the major press outlets. So they can be really helpful in that way. But it's up to the artist to be strong enough to have their vision intact through that system. On the flip side, the independent is more heart-driven, if you will. And they will they will support the vision of the artist a bit more, and they will approach the marketing more individually. So it depends on your personality and the team that you have behind you. They also don't have that power with television and radio. But there's been plenty of bands, if they're good and people respond to them, if they have a little bit of momentum going, they snowball. And then the major label wants to sign you, and do you need them at that point is the question. Some say yes, some say no. Here's a good example of a major label marketing faux pas. There was a major label who signed a band because they had a hugely successful video on YouTube. People shared the crap out of it. So they signed the band, gave them a bunch of money, and on the first single off that album that was on the major label, they did not want that video to be shareable because they wanted to collect the royalties from YouTube. Long story short, the video earned $5,000 from YouTube royalties. God knows how much of which the band saw, maybe a couple $100. Who knows? I don't know their deal. And the album flopped because people couldn't share the video. So that's promotion. YouTube is promotion. And you're not going to make a ton of money on it. You'll make some money. It all adds up. And you can reinvest it in more videos. But that's the kind of thing you need to be careful of with majors. You want to negotiate your terms very carefully. With Garbage, I negotiated a publishing deal that had a $50,000 marketing fund. And that came in handy because the label doesn't always agree that things need to be paid for, that I felt should be paid for at the time. And if it came from another source, they didn't mind. But we had that source, and that was good. As an example, when we went after licensing with 8mm aggressively, it wasn't really done. It was seen as, it was on the border of selling out, and I thought it was the new radio, as did Sean and Juliet. Now it's become one of the only avenues with which to get your music heard, because radio has become so controlled by a corporation who only plays a few songs on a playlist on a national scale. So these companies have cropped up that do their sync houses, and they place your music with television, film, games, etc. But some of these terms can be, I feel, unfair. I feel 50% too much to charge as a representative for anything. That's more than twice what a manager makes. So it's important to learn what you can about what licensing the business side is about. Getting an attorney involved for every license is not, I don't feel it would be a good idea because you're overcomplicating the thing. Once you understand the basics, if you start to overcomplicate it, they're not going to want to use your music, and who can blame them? But what you do not want to do, as an artist manager, I would say, is give your music away for free. Any major corporation has billions of dollars, and if they're asking us, a creative group to give something to them that they may potentially be able to use forever in any shows on the program Viacom, that's not fair. And they will come up with the money if they want the track. I'm not going to name the show or the station, but somebody put an 8mm track in one of their shows that were renowned for not paying. They said you get to collect the money from the performance, ASCAP, BMI. Anyways, they put it in. They expected us to give them the track, and we didn't. And they came up with the money, and it was fair, and that was okay. They'll come up with it if they want it. And artists have to start standing up for themselves. So don't be afraid to ask for money. Or tell them what you want. Say, what's in your budget? That's where a manager comes into play. Different shows have different budgets. You want to be realistic. You don't want to ask $50,000 from an independent production. You know, there's independent movies, and then there's major corporations. So, you know, they act accordingly. If you love the film, they may not have money if they're an independent and you want to give them the track, that's okay. If it's, I don't want to name anybody, any names, but if it's a major mainstream media company, no.
All right.
Just say no. They'll come back if the track is good. So as a new artist, figure out who you are. Know how to communicate that visually and musically. Do your homework and back up your bullshit.